Hey, Scott, we appreciate the time. What was your most impressive takeaway from the Phillies' last 3 games down there at Steinbrenner Field?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest one is what the offense did just sort of holistically, right? Like the first night in there, they hit a bunch of home runs, opposite field home runs at that, and won with their power. Last night it was more winning in other ways, scoring runs in other ways. Obviously they come back from that big deficit last night. That's a big win anytime, but I just thought the offense started to fire, really fire the way we expected it to over the last 3 days, and from different sources, right? I mean, it was sort of like 2 hits a night from Trey Turner, and Brandon Marsh had some big moments, and Alec Boehm hit a home run in the first game. So I just kind of felt like for the first time we saw over a full series, three games, that the offense really kind of clicked, and that's the key to me because the starting pitching is going to be there. It's a really good rotation. It's a really deep rotation, and more often than not, all 5 starters are going to give you a chance to win the ball game. Do you score enough runs? And they left no doubt that they can score runs with what they did in Tampa.
Scott, do you feel as though the bullpen has taken steps forward?
Well, I think some individuals have, Ricky. Like, I think Jordan Romano looks a whole lot steadier than he looked earlier in the year. He was working through a lot of stuff, right? I mean, they were working with him in spring training on holding runners better, and I think it probably screwed up his mechanics a little bit. He was working on, doing some things mechanically as well to kind of pick up his velocity, which was down a tick early in the season, and I think he got screwed up. So, yeah, he looks a lot steadier, and when he looks steadier, I think the bullpen as a whole looks steadier because of the role that he plays, in the late innings. So I guess a little bit. I mean, look, I've told you guys going back to the offseason that it feels to me like they're a reliever short, a late inning arm short, and I still feel that way. I think when the deadline comes around, they're going to be shopping for a reliever. There are a lot of teams that are going to be shopping for a reliever, whether it's Ryan Helsley in St. Louis. I would watch Joan Duran, right, in Minnesota. If they don't turn it around and start playing better, maybe they're a seller, and maybe he's available, and he's available for more than 1 year because he's under contract beyond this year. So, I mean, there are going to be relievers out there. There are going to be a lot of teams looking for them, and I think the Phillies are going to kind of be in that bucket of good teams, contending teams that feels like they need one more arm in the bullpen.
God, I just had visions of a 103-mile-an-hour splinter at Citizens Bank Park. That would be amazing. Now, Scott, the Phillies are certainly not a starting pitcher short. In fact, they might have too many. But can you just talk about what has impressed you most with this rotation so far this year?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not fair to sit here and go, well, it's been as expected. But it kind of has been as expected because, we thought going in that the rotation was their strength. I've said this before with you guys that, like, I feel bad sometimes because Zach Wheeler will go out there and throw, 6 innings and give up a run, and we barely talk about him because it's what we come to expect from him every time he goes out there. I think it's just look, I think it's the overarching idea that, like I said, they kind of keep you in games every time you play. Like, you're not sending a guy out there and you're like, I don't know about this guy today. We might have to score 8 or 9 runs to win today because we just don't have it on the mound. I mean, who's that guy in the rotation who you say that about? There really isn't one. So, like, obviously Aaron Nola, I think, has found something and turned it around since the beginning of the year. It's funny, I had him on Phillies Extra, which is a baseball show we do over at the Inquirer, and, it kind of dawned on me that he gives up that long foul ball homer, non-homer to Juan Soto in New York that night. It gets reviewed, it gets called back, and he's given up 1 run in 17 innings since. And I asked him, like, is that a coincidence or did you find something? Did something click? Was that sort of like getting that reprieve, right, in that game? Did that set something off? And he said, no, I think it's probably somewhat coincidental, but he said, look, there's no doubt he's felt better and he's pitched better since then. And I think he's using his cutter more and more effectively. It gives him another look. Now, all of a sudden, with 2 strikes, you think Aaron Nola is going to throw you a curveball, and he strikes you out on a cutter. So that's been a big pitch for him. I think his command has been kind of locked in lately. And when Nola's pitching that way, and Wheeler's going to pitch well, and Luzardo has been pitching well, and Sanchez has pitched well, and now Rangers first coming back, and I know his first start wasn't really good, but they're thinking he'll round into form. Well, then that gives you 5, and you got Taijuan Walker, and by the way, I was in Lehigh Valley last night watching Andrew Painter in reserve come summertime. Well, now you've got 6 or 7 starters. So these are problems that every team would love to have, and they would love to have that as long as these guys keep rolling.
Well, here's something that's been a bit interesting. Brandon Marsh has come back. He is now, 5 for 11 in his return. What is that going to do to the center field position?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting the other day when Rob Thompson said, that he called Marsh and Rojas in the office after, I guess it was the first game in Tampa, and they kind of mapped out. He wanted to kind of map out with them what the next week and a half is going to look like, because they are both swinging the bat better. They are both healthy, and the Phillies are in this run now where they're playing. They're facing pretty much all righty starters. It's kind of amazing, Ricky. They faced 8, I believe it is, 7 or 8 lefty starters the entire year so far. So, it kind of looks like from 30,000 feet, like maybe they're running some platoons. Maybe there's a platoon going on at second base, or maybe there's one going on in left field. I think it's less that they're intending on platooning at those positions than it's, well, we've got to get Edmundo Sosa in the lineup someday, so let's do it on this one day out of 10 where we face a lefty. And same goes for Weston Wilson. But I think center field's a different story. I think in a perfect world, maybe as long as they're both swinging the bat well, maybe you want to have somewhat of a timeshare there with Rojas and with Marsh. And obviously with all righties, Rojas would be on the bench for 9 consecutive days or whatever it's going to be before they face another lefty. So he called them in. He talked about it. He said, look, I'm going to play, I'm going to kind of rotate for a little while, one on, one off, one on, one off. And then I think toward the end of this stretch, they're both going to get a back-to-back situation where they get to play. And, ideally the lefty-righty starter thing kind of, not evens out, because you're never going to face as many lefties as righties, but, normalizes at least a little bit to where you feel like you're getting them both the at-bats and the playing time and taking advantage maybe of that platoon situation. But we'll see. I mean, right now they seem intent on using both of them as much as they can, and I think ultimately they ride with the hotter hand. But when they're both swinging the bat well and kind of making things happen, I think that what we're going to see is a little bit of a center field rotation.
Last one for you here, Scott, before we let you go. And speaking of hot hands, the Phillies have a bunch of them, and they're facing some pitchers with some lofty ERAs as they get ready to head up to Cleveland. No one below 4.2 of the 3 righties they're going to face scheduled to start. Do you expect this team to stay hot up there in Cleveland?
I don't see why you wouldn't, but of course it's baseball, right? So as soon as you start to apply logic and, think you have it figured out or think that you've spotted a trend, we know how baseball handles that. It kind of goes the other way on you. So, I would think I certainly like the way they swung the bat in Tampa. I think they're coming out of Tampa hot. Now, they got in late last night. I haven't seen a lineup yet. I suspect maybe some regulars maybe get a rest tonight, a couple of them at least, and then maybe a couple of them tomorrow, and then everyone's back in there Sunday. We'll see kind of how it splits up or shakes out. But, yeah, I mean, I certainly like the way that they're swinging the bat, and, they're not facing, Roger Clemens, Randy Johnson, and Greg Maddux this weekend. So, I mean, you'd like to think that they could kind of keep that going against the Guardians team that does typically pitch. I mean, that's why that they've been able to contend year over year, is because typically they pitch. So we'll see. We'll see what they can do, and we'll see if the Phillies are able to score some runs this weekend.
Gotcha, man. We'll all be watching along with you, and we'll be reading your work. Appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you down the road, Scott.
Hey, I want to thank you guys for watching, listening in. I want you to like, subscribe, do what you have to do to kind of stay on focus with us. Also, we also have plenty of other content that goes on here on YouTube. So go to that, like that, subscribe to that. And also you can catch us on the afternoon show, 2 to 6, Monday through Friday, 97.5 The Fanatic, 97.5thefanatic.com, and NBC Sports Philadelphia.